Good morning, Commissioner and members of the public. My name is Rob Senta, and I'm lead Commission Counsel on the Red Hill Valley Parkway inquiry, which was called by the City of Hamilton. We are here today to receive updates from the participants regarding document production. Before we begin this morning, I'd like to open this hearing by acknowledging that the City of Hamilton that called this inquiry is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. The land of Hamilton is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. And we further acknowledge that the land on which Hamilton sits is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I'm speaking to you remotely today, this morning from my home, which is on the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. I'd like to welcome counsel for the participants in the inquiry to this virtual hearing this morning. Because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we have convened today's hearing remotely using the Zoom technology. All of the counsel for the participants can see and hear the commissioner and all other counsel, all of whom are appearing remotely from each other. I expect that this will all go smoothly, but if any counsel wishes to speak at any particular time, or if there's a technological problem, please raise your hand or send a message through the chat feature and we will try to solve that problem. The technological backbone for today's hearing is being provided by Arbitration Place, and they have ensured that the hearing today is being live streamed on YouTube so that members of the public may observe today's public hearing via a link that is found on the inquiry website. Within a few days, I understand this hearing will be available for viewing on the inquiry's website at www.rhvpi.ca, and a transcript of today's submissions will also be available on the website. To provide some background to today's proceeding and to remind participants and members of the public where we've come from, I want to start out by reminding people that the Honorable Mr. Justice Herman J. Wilton-Siegel was appointed to preside over this inquiry in May of 2019. The City Council of the City of Hamilton received information regarding a 2013 friction report related to the Red Hill Valley Parkway. And on April 24th, 2019, Hamilton City Council passed a resolution pursuant to Section 274 of the Municipal Act 2001, requesting that the Chief Justice of Ontario appoint a Superior Court judge to investigate matters related to the disclosure of the friction report. That resolution contained the terms of reference that would guide the inquiry's work. The terms of reference require the inquiry to determine the facts relating to 24 questions posed by City Council, which fall into 5 general categories as described on the website. The second part of the inquiry's mandate is to make recommendations regarding the matters mentioned that appear to be in the public interest, and in particular, the interest of good government of the City of Hamilton, and in the interest of road safety, particularly insofar as it relates to the Red Hill Valley Parkway. I'd like to quickly review the principal activities of the inquiry since it was established. On October 30th, 2019, the inquiry invited applicants to participate and seek funding in the inquiry and published rules regarding such applications. On January 10th, 2020, the Commissioner received oral submissions from all 9 applicants. And on February 12th, 2020, the Commissioner released his decision and reasons concerning participation and funding in the inquiry. He granted 4 entities the right to participate in the inquiry: the City of Hamilton, Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, Dufferin Construction Company, and Golder Associates Limited. And counsel for all of those participants are present on the call today. Since that time, Commission Counsel have consulted with the participants regarding the rules the Commission would adopt for the inquiry. Those rules of procedure were published on June 25 and are available on the inquiry's website. The rules cover topics including the investigation phase of the inquiry, participants' obligations to preserve and produce documents to the inquiry, including a comprehensive document delivery protocol, procedures for determining claims of legal privilege, the creation and maintenance of the inquiry's document database, the creation by Commission Counsel of documents that identify the core or background facts for use at the hearing, the interview process, disclosure of proposed evidence prior to the public hearings, and finally, rules for the conduct of the public hearings themselves. Since the inquiry was called, Commission Counsel have been working with the participants to identify and collect relevant documents. We've also been working with entities that, while not participants, are anticipated to possess relevant documents for the work of the inquiry. The inquiry has issued summonses requiring recipients to deliver up to the inquiry all documents covered by the summons. To date, we have received over 74,000 documents. These documents are being loaded into a database to permit Commission Counsel to review and share these productions with the other participants. We've started our review of these documents and have worked with participants and others where we've identified gaps and omissions. Document production is not complete at this time. We are continuing to receive documents from participants and others. And one of the purposes of the hearing today is to receive updates from the participants on the status of their document production efforts. The Commission needs to obtain the documents in order to take the next steps in the inquiry. Once complete document production has been made, we can conduct a comprehensive review of the documents to determine if there are gaps, omissions, or additional searches to be completed, to review the documents to obtain an understanding of the events at issue, to prepare and interview persons of interest and potential witnesses for the public hearing stage, to draft the documents that will identify the core or background facts for use at the hearing, and to provide the documents and data to our experts so that they may prepare their expert reports, and to get ready for the public hearing phase. Given the pandemic and the state of productions to the Commission, Commission Counsel is currently targeting the first quarter of 2021 for the commencement of the public hearing phase of the inquiry. To talk briefly about the public hearing phase, the inquiry is mandated to conduct public hearings, and we intend to do so in a way that is efficient, cost-effective, and safe. It is too early to know what public health authorities will be recommending for public gatherings in early 2021. For that reason, Commission Counsel is exploring with counsel for the city, and we will be consulting with counsel for the other participants to explore ways to conduct public hearings remotely or in other safe and socially distant ways, if that is what is recommended in early 2021. Counsel for all of the participants are building up a great deal of experience working remotely and conducting virtual hearings, and we'll be working together to ensure that the public hearing phase will provide the public with meaningful access to the hearings and ensure the safety and security of all participants, counsel, staff, witnesses, and interested members of the public. As mentioned, in the Commissioner's decision on standing and funding released on February 12th, the Commissioner granted participation to 4 participants. In that decision, the Commissioner also outlined several other ways that persons without participation status could still provide information to the inquiry. These ways include contacting Commission Counsel with information and providing written submissions at the conclusion of the public hearings. In addition, the Commissioner set out in his decision that he intended to provide a forum in which individuals who have been personally affected by particular accidents on the Parkway will be consulted as part of its work, even if reconstruction of any particular accident is unlikely to fall within the terms of reference. This forum is intended to provide any person who was directly or indirectly affected by accidents on the Parkway with the opportunity to provide documents and to schedule individual and private discussions with the inquiry's counsel team. The inquiry intends the forum to be a mix of in-person and telephone conversations with interested persons with a view to obtaining a fuller appreciation of the impact of particular accidents on the residents of Hamilton. After the public hearing in February, the Commissioner's Council began to develop a process to convene that forum, which is anticipated to take place in the spring and summer of 2020. However, The inquiry delayed the commencement of this forum as a result of the public health measures put in place as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We will now proceed with this forum in the fall of 2020, and in the coming weeks, the inquiry will invite interested persons to let us know of their interest in contributing to the work of the inquiry through this forum. In order to maintain appropriate social distancing, the inquiry team will meet with interested persons by telephone and video conference, and we'll be releasing further information about this opportunity on the RHVPI website in the coming weeks. Commissioner, before I call on the participants to the inquiry to provide you with an update, I understand that you would like to say a few words.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Senta. And as mentioned before hearing from the participants, I have a few comments of my own. First, I want to thank all of the participants and their counsel for facilitating this hearing remotely. As Mr. Senta has already stated, until the public health authorities can assure all of us that it is safe to proceed with physical hearings, we intend to explore the most efficient virtual platform in order that the inquiry can continue to proceed as quickly as possible. Second, again, as Mr. Senta has mentioned, I've called this hearing to receive an update, but also to attempt to set firm deadlines for the delivery of the remaining documentation from participants. I was appointed in May of 2019, over 14 months ago. My mandate is to investigate a large number of issues delineated by Hamilton City Council in the terms of reference. And I intend to do so and am attempting to do so in as timely and cost-effective a manner as is possible in the circumstances. However, as I indicated to representatives of the city at the time, shortly after my appointment, and at the public hearing and on other occasions, the final cost of the hearing is highly dependent on the duration. And it is therefore imperative that firm deadlines be established for the delivery of the remaining documentation in the relatively near future in order that we can allow the inquiries team and its technical experts to continue their work. Third, in parallel with the process of documentary production to date, we've attempted to progress the work of the inquiry in areas where this is feasible. In particular, technical experts have been engaged to provide the necessary background in the areas of engineering, to the engineering and road safety aspects of the issues to be addressed by the inquiry, and preliminary reports have been received. In addition, as Mr. Senta has indicated, a process has been formulated to receive input from parties who've been affected by accidents on the Parkway. However, we have reached a stage where making significant further progress requires receipt of a complete set of the relevant documentation. Further, the experience of other public inquiries has been that receipt of the documentation from the principal participants inevitably reveals other documentation that must be obtained and reviewed, which necessarily lengthens the documentary production process. All of this is necessary before Commission Counsel will be in a position to complete their review and to prepare an overview for the purposes of proceeding to the next stage of this inquiry, which is the interviewing of witnesses. This reality means that it is all the more important to establish firm deadlines for completion of the documentary production process. With that, I will now ask Mr. Senta to manage the order of presentations in this hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner. First, I would like to call on counsel for the City of Hamilton, Eli Letterman and Delna Contractor, who I believe is with Mr. Letterman, but just off camera.
Thank you, Mr. Senta, and good morning, Commissioner. As counsel for the City of Hamilton, let me address you to provide an update with respect to the status of the documentary production from the city, and secondly, to give you a sense of our anticipated timelines for the completion of that process. As you may know, the City of Hamilton has expended considerable resources towards collecting and reviewing relevant documents and producing them to the Commission so that the Commission can do the work of the inquiry. This has included collecting documents from approximately 100 custodians of current and former city employees. It has involved the collection of documents from the city's network drives, hard copy documents, and obtaining and extracting information from ProjectWise, which is the document management system used in the Public Works Department. That search process has resulted in collecting over 3 million documents, which we have then put through our electronic search protocols to narrow the documents down. It has resulted in the production to date of just over 50,500 relevant documents, which we have produced in 8 tranches as they have become available during the course of the inquiry. That leaves us to what is remaining, and that is that there is a portion of documents from the ProjectWise data management system that is still to be delivered. That process of obtaining or extracting that information from ProjectWise, we've encountered some technical difficulties because even though we were able to get the data, it didn't also capture the metadata. And so that required the retention and engagement of a third-party service provider to assist in writing code or a script in order to extract that data and transfer it into our system so that we could produce it in a usable format. We're at the stage now, Commissioner, where it turns out we've been able to extract that data. It has resulted in a production set that is less than 10,000. We are completing our review of that data and have the firm view that that remaining data can be produced to the Commission by Monday, this coming Monday, July the 13th. When we do that, that will by and large complete the documentary production engaged in by the city. At that time, we will also provide Commission Counsel with our list of privileged documents, just so that it's clear that any documents over which solicitor client privilege or litigation privilege has been asserted, that will be produced at the same time. Let me just make a final comment about the city's production efforts. The process has been a lengthy one, in large measure because of the volume of data that has been collected. It's also been lengthy in the sense that the terms of reference do call upon 24 broad questions, and the request for documents resulted in approximately 50 different categories of documents. So that ensured making sure that we obtained all documents that were responsive to the terms of reference, but at the same time, we wanted to take the care to ensure that the review process was such that we were only producing documents that were truly relevant, so that it doesn't result in creating a database of documents for the inquiry that contains extraneous or irrelevant information. The city remains committed to this inquiry and ensuring that it moves forward in a transparent fashion and in an expeditious and cost-effective way as well. And so we are hopeful that we can complete this stage of the inquiry. As I said, the city's efforts in terms of its documentary production is expected to be complete by Monday, this coming Monday, July the 13th. Those are my submissions, Commissioner. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, well, thank you for the update, Mr. Letterman. I appreciate that it's a large task, not assisted by the pandemic, but it was the city that called this inquiry. And it was therefore the city's obligation and our expectation it would deploy the necessary resources to deliver the documentation in its possession in a timely fashion. I appreciate what you've now said you expect to be able to deliver the remaining documentation by this following Monday. And we look forward to having that happen. I do think, though, that I have to say that given where we are today, that I'm disappointed that more than 14 months after the commencement of the inquiry, we're still in a position where there's documentation to be delivered at some point in the relatively near future. That said, according to you, it is a relatively near future, and I think it's important that we just get on with the task as quickly as possible. What we do expect from the city from this point forward is attentiveness to the next stage, which inevitably will be the request for additional documentation to the extent that that the Commission Counsel reveals that there may be some that your review hasn't yet identified.
City will, of course, cooperate any additional requests, and it remains committed to doing it in a timely way. Absolutely, Mr. Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Letterman.
Thank you.
Counsel for the Province of Ontario, Heather McIver and Colin Burrier. I don't know who's going to be speaking. Is it Ms. McIver?
It is, yes. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
As Mr. Senta noted, I'm here today representing Ontario, and I'd like to take you through Ontario's production efforts to date, what remains outstanding, and anticipated timelines for completion of our production efforts. Most of our efforts so far have related to the electronic collection of potentially relevant materials. And in order to carry out those electronic searches, we engaged assistance from a unit of the ministry. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay.
We can now.
You can. Okay. So I was just explaining that in order to conduct the electronic searches, we've engaged in assistance from a unit called Infrastructure Technology Services, who is the program area for the Ontario Public Service that is able to access and retrieve archived and electronically stored records. So in matters like this, it's particularly important because many of the custodians that have been flagged as potentially having relevant materials are no longer employees of ours, or perhaps they've switched positions within the OPS and no longer have access to those records. So we've engaged ITS. Unfortunately, on the ITS end, their capabilities are limited in that there's no screening, there's no other assessments that is done with the materials that are retrieved. So to that end, we've engaged a vendor to help with the screening of the records that have been retrieved by ITS. So the vendors provided those results in whole without any screening or sorting on our end, and then they have been performing keyword and other types of searches. As soon as we get those materials back, we will be screening them and we will be providing them to the Commission. But in terms of where we are at today, we've made 2 requests to ITS that covers the records of, I believe, 16 custodians. The results of the first request have been received. They have been delivered to the vendor. And they are currently still with the vendor. We've been told that the process is complete, and the vendor is in the process of exporting all of the results back to us. There have been some difficulties with the remote transfer of the documents such a large volume, but we do expect to have those materials in hand electronically this week. In terms of the document numbers for that search, we have also been informed by the vendor that there's over 9,000 that came back with keyword hits. And so as soon as those are transferred, we will be focusing our attention on screening for matters of privilege, and then we'll be delivering those productions to you. We anticipate by the end of July is still in a workable deadline. With respect to the second ITS poll, we are still waiting for the results from ITS. However, we again have been told that the retrieval is complete, and we are simply waiting for the remote transition of materials to us, which has been a bit problematic, but we expect that those issues will be resolved sooner rather than later. And then once those materials are in the hands of our law clerk, they will be sent to the vendor, and the same process will apply. In terms of numbers, we of course, we don't know what will be screened in, as a result of the vendor's efforts, but we've been told that the ITS pool of documents is about 4 times the size of the initial ITS pool. So we expect that it will be a somewhat bigger undertaking, and that we will be getting back a higher volume of materials from the vendor when they've finished their screening. In terms of timing, factoring in the vendor requirements and sort of estimating the volume of documents that will need to be screened, we are hoping to get that tranche out to you in the fall. I should note as well that it may be necessary to arrange for additional keyword searches of these groups of materials pulled by ITS. We're in the process of discussing additional searches with Commission Counsel. So that may lead to further tranches of productions being sent to you or the Commission Counsel. We're just in the process and are actively discussing proposals with our clients and trying to understand what would best achieve what Commission Counsel are looking for. And finally, I should mention, while these electronic searches have been happening, we have been working with ministry clients to conduct manual searches. Again, there aren't many custodians around that are engaged by the terms of reference regarding Ministry of Transportation, but we have been taking steps to look through emails, look through physical files, do that kind of searching. We did deliver some productions in January, and those productions were the result of manual searching. We anticipate that those records will be fairly duplicative with what comes from our ITS and vendor efforts. And in fact, we are sending all of our manual documents over to the vendor for deduplication and whatnot, but we do continue to pursue those avenues as well, just to ensure that we are covering as much ground as we possibly can. I think that is essentially where we're at. I know that you wanted to hear about potential obstacles. My colleague Colin is prepared to speak to those if you'd like detail, but I think I sort of alluded to it in my as I was making submissions, in terms of the remote capabilities have posed issues for us in terms of delay on both ends. And it's been a bit of trial and error, but we're hopeful that there's going to be no other significant delays caused by that, and Otherwise, we just need to pin down the numbers of documents that we're working with in order to ensure that, you know, the timelines we've set out. And certainly we know for the July tranche, you know, we seem to be on track for that. But for the next batch that comes back from the vendor, we'll have to assess the number of documents at that time and can probably provide a more firm estimate then.
I'm less interested in the obstacles than figuring out how we move the timetable forward, if at all possible. I'm not sure from your description whether the second batch or tranche relates to a particular time frame or set of issues, or whether it covers all the issues in the same way that the first tranche does. Do you have any sense of that?
It primarily covers additional custodians, although there are some custodians whose records were searched in the initial search, who will also be included for other time periods in the second search. So perhaps when we receive those files back from the vendor, you know, we can make efforts to divide the results and get you the screened documents in smaller tranches, so that we can sort of, you know, speed up that process.
Well, I'm sure that would certainly help the process. I suppose as well, knowing something of the custodians involved and their relationship to the matter or to the issues would probably be helpful. I leave that to Mr. Senta, but it may be that we can anticipate that the documentation from some will be much more significant than others and focus on those. Is that feasible?
I think that's fair. And although our first set of records that are coming to you at the end of July are expected to be smaller in number, I do think that they are going to be, by and large, the more relevant group. They were the custodians that were immediately identified and the time periods that were immediately identified. So we do feel that most of the key documents will be in that group. The second ITS expands to other individuals more on the periphery, who may have relevant records and may not have relevant records. And, you know, longer time periods had to be searched just to ensure that there were not conversations or communications happening, you know, just to check that off. But certainly the first tranche of documents will be, in my opinion, likely the more relevant documents.
I was rather hoping you might say that. Mr. Senta, do you have anything to add to this, or?
I don't. I don't. We've been working closely with Ms. McIver and her team to try and extract the documents. And based on my understanding of the custodians involved, I share Ms. McIver's view that the pending tranche of documents that they anticipate delivering in July are likely to be the most relevant custodians with the most relevant documents for the work. So we're continuing to work closely with the province, as with all participants, to smooth out the document search process, the collection process, and to facilitate production.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Ms. McIver. I think we proceed then on the basis that by the end of July, we should have substantially all of the principal documentation that will allow a complete review. We need to see the rest as quickly as it's available, and I leave you to work with Commission Counsel on that. There may be ways of, as you say, breaking it down into smaller tranches that will help them as well, so that we don't have to wait until sometime in September or October before we can say that the documentation is sufficiently complete that Council can start doing their work in a more thorough way.
Of course, understood, and
Okay.
we'll certainly work with Commission Counsel on that.
We very much appreciate that. Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Senda?
Thank you, Ms. McIver. Counsel for Dufferin, Jennifer McAleer and Rachel Lorian. And I believe Ms. McAleer will be speaking.
Good morning, Commissioner. As
Good morning.
Good morning. As Mr. Senta indicated, Ms. Lorian and I are appearing this morning on behalf of Dufferin. To date, Dufferin has produced approximately 2,500 documents to your Commission Counsel team. Those documents consist both of hard copy documents that we have retrieved and also some electronic documents, in particular electronic documents related to lab testing. We've also produced documents that were in the possession of our law firm because we have a long history with Dufferin, and we were able to search our own records in order to identify any documents that related to this project that were not privileged, and we've produced those. The date range that we've produced, we have documents that go back as far as January of 2000, but as you would expect, most of the documents fall within the more narrower time frame of 2005 to 2007. We've also produced to your Commission Counsel our document retention policies. As the Commissioner is aware, the events at issue are somewhat historic in nature. We're going back about 14, 15 years. So there are documents that we no longer have in the possession of Dufferin, and we've explained to your Commission Counsel what those documents are. We've provided particulars of those documents, and we've provided the document retention policies that governed during the different periods of time. In addition, back in August of 2019, when we first heard from your Commission Counsel team, we sent out document preservation notices to the people that we identified, or I should say that Dufferin identified as key custodians at the time. Their documents, if they have had any, have been produced. Since we've received documents and reviewed them, though, we have been able to identify additional individuals who may not be key personnel, but may in fact have documents. So we are contacting all of those people in order to ensure that they don't have any additional documents, and obviously if they do, we'll produce them. I would expect that process, we need probably another 2 weeks to complete that, Commissioner. So I'm asking for your indulgence until July 24th. That's a little bit more than 2 weeks, but just to reach out to those people to make sure that they don't have any documents that haven't already been produced. There are also 3 people that we've identified who no longer work for Dufferin. So internally, Dufferin has gotten access to their email, and somebody is going through those, searching them appropriately to make sure that there are no documents. We'll also contact those individuals just to make sure that they don't have any documents in their personal records, although I don't anticipate that's the case. So again, just to complete that portion of it, we're requesting until July 24th, just to make sure that there are no other documents. We have had some challenges with respect to email, and I now have a detailed description of the different email systems that Dufferin has used, and I will be able to provide that to your Commission Counsel team today, and certainly welcome any follow-up questions they have about the email and the fact that we've had some challenges locating emails. So that's my very quick summary, but I welcome any questions.
Oh, well, do I take it from all of this that by July 24th, you expect that you will have delivered everything that is reasonably within your possession?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Then that would be fine. That would be certainly in line with what we're lining up with the province on. So we look forward to receiving it, but it means that by the end of July, we should be in a position to move forward more than we've been doing to this point.
And just so you're, sorry, Commissioner, just so you and your team, just so you and your team understand, I actually don't anticipate that there will be a large volume of forthcoming documents. If anything, it's a handful of documents. We're just closing off some loose ends.
Dufferin's involvement was only at the stage of the design and construction, correct?
That's right. And one thing I omitted is that Dufferin was involved certainly in the paving contract, but had been previously involved in the grading work that had been done. So we've also identified to your
Mhm.
Commission Council team that we have secured over 13,000 documents related to the grading and related work. And
Mhm.
we have those documents. We will continue to hold them. We've provided some particulars of those documents to your Commission Council team, and we've advised them at any stage, if you or your team determine that you are of the view those are relevant, that we will produce them if you want them. We have in fact reviewed them to a certain degree to pull out any information that might be related to the paving, and we've again produced a handful of documents, I think under 20, but documents that were in that grading category of documents, but which are relevant to the paving work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. McAleer. Finally, Council for Golder, Jennifer Roberts.
Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, all. Let me just tell you where we are. Our first tranche of documents was produced on December 13, 2019. That contained the documents from the 6 project files and documents that had been collected by the principal custodian. In response to correspondence in March of this year from Commission Counsel, we went back and did a further sweep to make sure that custodians had actually uploaded documents that they might have kept on their personal computers to the 6 project files and collected some additional documents. We went through archives and a number of employees had left the firm. Images were taken of their computers on leaving, so we've done searches of all of those emails and collected some additional electronic records. Those went off to our document management team last week, and you should have them within the next few weeks. Additionally, we were able to locate some of the original project files, and notwithstanding Golder's document retention policy is 7 years, we were able to locate some of the original project records. These were delivered to the Commission document management company Friday last. So as far as I can see, we have identified the records that we believe are relevant to the inquiry, and and collected them, and they are on their way to you, if not already with you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Roberts. I think at the Golder's end, the real pressure, if there will be any in the near future, will be to identify any documents that appear to be missing and in the possession of Golder's that becomes apparent after Commission review of the remaining documentation. And we simply ask that you be, and you and Golder's be attentive to the need to respond to those requests as quickly as possible.
Of course.
Thank you, Commissioner. That concludes the submissions from the participants. For completeness, I wish to remind you that we are continuing to work with non-participant document custodians to obtain relevant documents from them. But as they're not formal participants in the hearing, they're not here today. And the Commission Counsel team remain grateful to Council for all of the participants and the non-participant custodians for their ongoing efforts and hard work and their cooperation with the inquiry process. That, unless any other council have anything further, from my perspective, that concludes the hearing for today.
Yeah, and I would only add, in addition to my concern that we meet the deadlines that have been discussed today, my appreciation for all the hard work that all council on this telephone call have put in connection with this documentary production process. Thank you.
So thank you to all council for participating today. Thank you to our technology experts for making this process work as seamlessly as possible. We are very grateful for your hard work in making this virtual hearing a possibility. Unless there's anything else, Commissioner, I think we're concluded for today.
I think we're done.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.